Hello and welcome everyone. I've started over my solo playthrough of the Conflict of Heroes Storms of Steel scenario called Graveyard, because it turned out I did need to play with two commanders per side, because there are rules that if you play with two players, well, you can just ignore that and you play as if you were just a single commander per side. And as I'm playing solo without the solo expansion, by the way, I felt it was safe to assume that you don't have to play that way either, and admittedly it's also a lot easier to play, and I would say also more fun to play. Anyway, this is the end of round one. I still have to do the end of round sequence, but as you can see, the Germans have taken a very solid lead. They are ahead by 6 victory points. They've destroyed a great many Soviet units, and as you can see on the board, this is what it looks like now. Over here, they destroyed KV-1 that entered the board at the beginning of the game, and it took a shot at the truck that was somewhere over here. It actually managed to hit once, but it didn't destroy it, and consequently it rallied. No, it wasn't actually the truck they fired at, it was a German tank. But the situation I described is accurate other than that. Over here, the Germans destroyed an abandoned Soviet tank. Over here, a T-70 that entered the board here, along with another T-70. It started chasing the truck around, but it didn't manage to hit, and it was hit by the anti-tank gun that was over here when it happened. Over here there was a lot of fighting going on as well. Here the Russians actually managed to rejuvenate, if you will. They equipped, they found a crew for the abandoned tank, and this one is actually a Russian unit now again. Over here, the Germans destroyed one. I wasn't quite sure about these. I forgot to place their wreckages, the wrecks, but must have been somewhere over here. Over here we have a German unit with a Russian unit. The Russian unit has already received one hit, and over here we have a Soviet unit that's been hit already with a truck. So it is important who wins initiative, because basically I was about to give up if the Russians didn't win initiative. They actually did. I rolled for that already just in case, and they rolled an 8 with 2 caps, so that would have been a 10, so more than enough. In the end they wouldn't have needed the caps, but then I'll continue one more round, and I guess the first action is going to be trying to destroy the truck, which will actually yield them, I believe, 3 victory points at the end of the scenario. It does also mean that the Germans get 1 extra truck over here, but it will allow them to catch up a little bit. So let's see how that turns out. But the way things are going now, I don't actually see the Russians winning this scenario anymore. Things could have gone slightly differently, but you can really notice that the firepower of the Russian tanks, especially of the T-70s, of which they have 4, I believe, in this scenario, is really rather weak, and you really need to be up close and personal with the German units. I guess that's pretty accurate. I mean, the T-70s weren't all that great, certainly not from a distance. So that makes sense, but their firepower is relatively weak. Their cost to fire, that's what I wanted to say, is pretty high. So whenever you do fire, you're almost certain to get spent. The Germans have a lower cost of fire, usually 3, the Russians mostly 5. So the Germans get away with it quite easily, and they have 1 more cap as far as that's concerned as well that they can use. They have, I believe, 9, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and the Soviets have 7. The rules say the total -1. The total the 2 commanders per side would have had. So all in all, it seems pretty difficult for the scenario for the Russians, but it is a lot more fun, I have to admit. There's much more going on, and you do see things that you could have done differently up to a certain extent than in the Courier Satchel scenario, which I find pretty much impossible for the Germans to win.
and this one is definitely a different story. I have to admit here as well, a couple of times the Russians just needed a 3 to hit or something. Some T-70s were in a hex with some of the Panzer IIIs, and it happened like 2 or 3 times that they rolled a 2 or a 3 when they needed a 4 or something like that, even when they were in the same hex or adjacent. So yeah, that was a bit of tough luck a couple of times, and if it happens a few times too often, that does make an impact, of course. Anyway, thank you for watching, and see you after round 2.